All right. Listen, this issue, and we talked about this yesterday, and it's been something that has been, you know how these stories go today with social media. They get on Facebook, they get on topics, and you don't know what's true, what isn't true. But we're told that there has been overpayments made because of a flaw in the formula. At the very least, the formula was not applied properly. And I believe they've gone back 6 years, and we're looking at $1.37 million is the number that we have. And that money has been distributed. Overpayments have been made to the town of Little Falls, or city of Little Falls, town of Webb, and the town of Schuyler. The question is how much, and should it be paid back? A lot of people are saying if you make these municipalities pay it back, it's going to be very difficult for them because it would really break bankrupt, potentially, these communities. On the line right now is Jim Wallace. Jim is the county administrator in Herkimer County. Jim, thanks for coming on this morning.
Morning, Bill. How are you?
Good. So in a nutshell, can you tell us what's going on here and what the facts are?
Sure. Just a real quick down and dirty on our sales tax in Herkimer County, which has been around since 1988. We take $1 million off the top. This is the 3% sales tax.
Yeah.
We take $1 million off the top for highways, and that's been there since 1988. After that, the state gives a lot of deference to the cities in New York State. So with the formula in the state, we have to have an agreement with the city of Little Falls. The city of Little Falls, per the previous census, gets their prorated population applied to half of the remaining.
Okay.
Then we do share. I know there's 11 counties that don't share with their villages and towns.
Yep.
But we do share with our villages and towns, and we're happy to do that and want to do that. You divide, let's say it was $21 million, Bill, for the year.
Yep.
And we take $1 million off the top. Then you would divide that $20 million by 3, and that's the portion that's shared between the villages and towns. So not the city,
right?
But the villages and towns.
So you work out a deal. There's a completely different agreement done with the city based on its charter and based on rules and regulations in New York State.
Absolutely.
Okay,
and then within, because I think this is an important thing that you guys have been trying to get to. Then what the towns and villages, that's done by 50% population and 50% assessed value.
Got it. Now, that's very important because if you did, and correct me if I'm wrong here, if you did population, then you could look at like the town of Webb would receive much less, right? Because they have high-value properties there. Also, a lot of county highway there. But by blending that, you feel you get a more fair formula, a more fair distribution.
Yeah, and again, Bill, about 40% of our property taxes are paid by the people in Webb. So our predecessors, I think, came up with a pretty fair formula.
Okay, all right. What is the so we've been throwing a number around of $1.37 million. That goes back 6 years. Is that a correct number? We
believe, number one, Bill, because I've heard a little bit of the show over the last couple of weeks, that we can only go back 6 years.
Okay,
so that's why we chose 6 years. It wasn't arbitrary and capricious. We took a look at that and said we need to go back. The number that we have, and again, once this all happened, and again, we hadn't looked at it probably in years, we brought in our outside auditor who does our auditing for us.
Yeah.
They did the review for 6 years. It wasn't done by staff here or by the treasurer's office. The legislature thought the best thing was to bring somebody from the outside to take a look.
Okay.
The number we have is 1.32.
Okay.
Okay.
So now, is that $1.32 million? That is 4 quarterly payments in 2015, plus 4 quarterly payments in 2014, plus 4, and then going back 6 years collectively? Or is that an annual number? Is that $1.2 million annually? Or
no,
is
that's from 2010 forward.
That's the total amount that has been overpaid since 2010?
Correct.
Okay. And that was one of the questions that I think... because I've heard much larger numbers, especially if you go back. There are a lot of people that believe if you went back past 6 years, the number would grow pretty incredibly.
I'm not convinced that's true.
Okay.
You know, Jim,
would a grow bill? Absolutely, but I don't think it would be the same issue. Some of the same issues.
Okay, all right.
Jim, you know, this is a complex formula, but you did a very nice job of explaining, I guess, basically the nuts and bolts of how this works. How did the issue crop up? Why did this happen?
We have an agreement with the city of Little Falls, as I mentioned earlier, where it says that the towns and villages will get 1/3. There is an error in that formula that it said 1/2. We corrected that. The city of Little Falls corrected that. We both went public with it. I know the Telegram had a couple articles on those stories. So a couple of the villages were saying, geez, we deserve more money. We sent that to the controller, and the controller agreed. The letters we had sent guys way back when was saying there's no changes here, both to the city of Little Falls and to the state controller. It was really just an error. Once that happened, we started to dig deeper. And once we did that, we said, oops, we got to get the auditor in here immediately.
All right. And that's when you discovered overpayment to the town of Webb and overpayment to the town of Schuyler?
28 towns and villages were overpaid.
Okay.
The town of West Winfield was underpaid $125 over that period, which is really, I think, insignificant. It's important, but it's insignificant. And the town of German Flats was about $28,000. Those were both paid in the July payment.
Those were underpaid.
Those are the two. Everybody else was
underpaid.
overpaid.
So we have two that were underpaid. Everybody else was overpaid. But in terms of being overpaid, correct me if I'm wrong, the town of Webb, town of Schuyler, and city of Little Falls were substantial amounts. Would you agree with that?
I would say the city of Little Falls was substantial.
What's the number on that?
About $675, Bill.
Okay, and then town of Webb?
$675,000, correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yes, okay.
Town of Webb?
Webb, and I don't have everything in front of me, but about $130,000.
And then town of Schuyler?
$33,000.
$33,000. Okay.
And then we have villages, that are much higher than that.
Okay, you do. Okay.
Like
Not higher than Webb or higher than Little Falls, though.
You got Herkimer at over $68,000 overpaid. You have Ilion $59,000 that was overpaid. And again, I don't know how much you want me to get into the weeds, guys.
Well, trying to get to the.
A lot of what happened was the equalization rate and how it was applied.
Yeah.
So the villages actually ended up getting more money than their towns, even though the towns did get overpaid.
Got it. I want to tell you, we're talking to Jim Wallace, Herkimer County. Jim is the county administrator there. There is an issue, and it's a bit of a controversy in Herkimer County about overpayment. I know it's been heated for a lot of people, overpayments to municipalities, and then what happens. We'll get to that coming up, but Manaski.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, it sounds, based on the numbers that you've given here, a lot of people were overpaid. You had two that were underpaid, one $125, and another one, I think you said, I didn't write down. $28,000. So really, this money, this difference, did it actually come out of the county's coffers? The county was actually shorting itself in most cases, not necessarily the towns and villages.
Two different things here. On the city, as we mentioned earlier, the city has its own formula. So that money could be argued should be with the county. The money within the towns and villages for most of those years, that's within that same pot, Jeff, the third. So that doesn't affect the county one way or the other.
Well, where did it come from then?
Their third.
Oh, from Little Falls third.
No, from all the other towns and villages.
I got you. I understand.
When did you discover that there was a problem with the formula?
I would say early this year.
Okay, so not before
March, April.
Okay, not before. And how did you discover that?
As I mentioned, it was brought to us that there was a problem with the Little Falls contract.
Got it.
And once that happened, people here started looking at it.
Okay, understood.
Then we immediately brought in our outside auditor.
I want to ask you also in terms of paying the money back. So if Little Falls has received $675,000 in overpayment, it's causing a bit of a problem for them. Of course, they've now budgeted for this. They will now feel, and I've talked to the legislator there, who feels that they now are going to have to raise taxes because that money is not going to be there. In addition, if they had to pay it back, it would break them. What's the intention? Is the plan to require these municipalities to pay this money back?
My belief, Bill, is that they will not be asked to pay it back.
Okay. And why is that?
Number one, it was our mistake, our error. We deal with New York State all the time. I guess I'm a little bit, this is kind of an important issue to me.
Yeah.
Where I'm getting screwed by New York State all the time for something we didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
The city of Little Falls, let's take them because you brought that up. They've been having their budgets planned on that over the last several years. I think we've all seen that they're one of those in the controller's list where there's some issues as far as finances, and for us to go after $675,000 may put them out of business.
Okay.
This is Jim Wallace speaking, Bill, too.
I understand. Is that legal?
Yes, it is.
Can you do that without a resolution and a vote by the legislature?
We have a right because it's a municipality to do so.
Okay. Now I'll ask you this. You said that you just learned there was an issue, but I have a letter in front of me, and I want to bring this to you, and I just want to read it. It comes from Kim Enya. She's the Herkimer County Treasurer. It's dated July 24th, 2013. Not this year, not last year, but 2013. It's written. In this case, it was sent to the village of Herkimer.
Right.
It states, but I know you know what I'm saying, but I want to read it for the benefit of the people listening. Please be advised, due to a clerical error, that you have received an overpayment in your April and July 2013 sales tax distributions. The equalization rates have been updated, and we were working with corrected figures. We are working with corrected figures going forward. The necessary adjustments, and this is key, will be made in October 2013 in that distribution. So, by my calculations, in April of 2013, based on the formula, you overpaid $128,000. You paid $199,000 in July, and then in October, you took that money back. So it looks like there was an overpayment of about $56,000. So without consultation with the village of Herkimer, who, by the way, you are in the midst of a battle over the jail issue, you just removed that money, that $56,000 from their distribution. Why could you remove it from Herkimer, but you're saying that it would be unfair to remove it from Little Falls?
That was an error, Bill, that happens all the time. We'll get corrections from New York State saying we're taking $600,000 away from you. I'm treating to me, those are two different issues. From maybe I'm too deep into the weeds on it.
Yeah.
But that's corrections that are made on an ongoing basis, those kinds of things.
So in the case of Little Falls, for instance, in $675,000, if you were to take that over 20 years, quarterly payments, and break that down over the course of 20 years, it would be far less than the $50,000 you took away from the village of Herkimer. Why does that?
But remember, Bill, that was all within the same budget year.
I understand. I understand that.
I think that's a big difference. I think because you're not hurting the village of Herkimer in that case, the way I look at it.
Well, taking $56,000 out of their, because then in October they only received $79,000. So you're saying within the year they received the exact amount.
Right, in that year they got what they were supposed to get.
Okay, I understand that.
That's where we're coming from. I know people are arguing the other way too, Bill. I understand that.
And you can understand that I'm getting stuff from all angles. I'm getting, and I understand also that taking $675,000 from the city of Little Falls could be horrific for that city. No doubt about it. And also the fact that they budgeted on it, very, very bad. But at the same time, there is the visual here, Jim, that is tough to look at, knowing that the county is at odds right now in a very, very difficult dispute over the jail. So they're going to cry foul.
I sat down with I think 2 or 3 village. We sent a letter, Bill, to everyone in July saying that there were some errors and mistakes, and please come in and sit down with me, and we'll go through everything with you, what the auditor did, what the mistakes we made, the corrections we're making going forward. And I thought we had a wonderful meeting. The biggest concern I had heard from them at that time was the contract with the city of Little Falls.
Yeah.
And they said very clearly they were anxiously awaiting to hear from the controller. And since that time, we have heard from the controller saying what we've done and the corrections we have made are proper.
Got it. Jim, if I could just clarify a couple of things. I know when we talked about not asking Little Falls for that money back, is that only Little Falls because it's a city, or is that all municipalities who were overpaid?
That's the other 28 municipalities.
Okay. Additionally, I think I know one was short $125, the other was $28,000, whatever. Are you going to make them whole? Anyone who was short?
They were made whole in July.
They've been made whole. Okay.
So I guess the question is, I know this is going to be a heated issue because there are some legislators that are very upset about this, that don't want to see that money gifted. So how do you resolve that? And you say you can do that without consulting the legislature?
I believe yes.
Okay.
I believe we can. I think we can make adjustments where necessary. Bill, there's other situations. And we have withdrawal parcels of property that benefit certain villages that the county's located in, where the other taxpayers have paid $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 for dilapidated properties. Should we go after that money and claw that money back from the village of Herkimer? The legislature's made that decision not to do so. So we kind of look at the whole thing in the whole big picture.
Got it. And I can do that. And there are people. I want to leave this at the last because it's out there, and I just want you to answer it. That believe that if you were to go back to 2003, that the number would grow from 1.37 million to somewhere in the range of over $10 million. You disagree with that?
100%.
Okay. But can you prove that because you haven't gone back past 6 years?
We have not had the auditor go back past 6 years.
Would it be beneficial to do that just to answer the question once and for all?
I think that's something we can think about. We've looked at that, but I can tell you that number of $10 million is probably $8 million.
I'm only saying from the standpoint of okay, but it's still from our standpoint looking in, having an independent auditor look at this would really set people. I mean, we all love to be able to have the facts and say, hey, this came from an independent auditor, and I would think that considering that might be beneficial to really take away the whole gray area. But certainly that payment in 2013 with the village of Herkimer makes sense. It does make sense, and I think this is going to be a very interesting case going forward for you guys. And I appreciate you taking the time and being really forthcoming here this morning.
I appreciate talking to you, Bill, giving us the opportunity. Thank you.
Jim, thanks so much. Got a break at WIBX.
Have a great day.
Thanks.